Now, it's no secret that Americans like cheap clothes. But as it's been previously reported, cheap clothes come at a cost, usually in the form of foreign sweatshops where people get paid $2, $3, $4 an hour. Now, of course, a lot of Americans, that makes people uncomfortable, okay? When you actually see who's sewing your clothes for $2 an hour or whatever, you get kind of pissed off. Naturally so. Now, according to a report in The Atlantic, cheap clothes are also costly for people like Pedro Montiel. Now, Pedro Montiel says he makes about $4.50 an hour putting the labels and other finishing touches on blouses for a supplier of a major clothing retailer. So here we go. We've got another story of some foreign sweatshop and people getting caught up in this also that we could have cheap shirts. But here's the twist. Montiel is not in a Mexican factory. He's not in a Chinese factory. He's not in a Vietnamese factory. He works at a company in downtown LA. Wait a minute. So he makes $4.50 an hour doing this repetitive job in LA. First of all, that's not even anywhere close to minimum wage. And secondly, how do you survive on that living in LA? Well, in his words, he can't survive. He said, you can't buy anything you need between rent and food. Everything is gone. There's no money left. And by the way, when it comes to rent, he also shares a old ramshackle apartment with two other people in a poorer district in town. Now, look, this is bad, right? You have these, you have people getting paid such low wages to create, clothing that gets sold in larger department stores. Now, one of the companies investigated for doing this by the Department of Labor is named Forever 21. And it's just one of the several companies that have been supplied by independent Southern California factories that pay their workers less than a minimum wage. So, now the department did an investigation, and it said that from April to July, 77 local garment companies that were supplying some of the biggest clothing stores in the nation were guilty of doing these labor violations. Now, investigators uncovered that the fact that there are labor violations in 85% of the cases that they investigated. 85%. Holy fucking shit! That is a massive majority that are doing these labor violations, mostly withholding money that these people have worked for. This isn't like, 5% of companies. No, this is a majority. This is almost all of them that are holding money hostage. That's crazy. Now, the department said, and by the way, this is in the middle of LA. Amazing. Now, the department said that and found that the companies cheated workers out of $1.1 million in wages that should have ended up being theirs. Now, the retailers with ties to companies that had the most offenses were Ross Dress for Less, Forever 21, and TJ Maxx. Now, the report states that workers were paid as little as $4 an hour, and they roughly got $7 an hour on average. Now, that's still $3 less than the state minimum wage, according to Labor Department figures. So how can these companies get away with this crap? Well, the business model that they use is set up in a way that shields them from any sort of legal responsibility. Now, this is according to Ruben Rosales, who's a regional director with the administrator with the Labor Department. The department said that it has penalized the garment companies and some manufacturers that act as intermediaries between the factories and retailers. Those companies were ordered to pay $1.3 million in lost wages and damages to workers. Now, the retailers, however, will avoid any repercussions for hiring these factories that violate these labor laws. Now, the Labor Department can only penalize, thanks to this corporate structure and the laws, companies that directly employ workers. So in order to avoid being hit by these kinds of fines, retailers are able to keep their distance by working with several different layers of suppliers. So that's what they do. Oh no, we're going to layer our company with bureaucracy and different suppliers so that we do not get labeled at fault. We know the laws. We know how to circumvent them. And so we can't be at fault for hiring these companies and subcontracting out to them. These companies, these factories that pay $4 an hour. Oh, we didn't know they were breaking labor laws. Oh, really? I'm pretty sure you knew. That's why you hired them. But according to the law, you can't be punished. Now, Rosales said that business model has shielded them from any legal responsibility. And the problem, he said, is that retailers have not increased the rate they pay manufacturers in years. So this is why they're doing so. So retailers, what they do is that they'll set a price for a shirt. They're saying, hey, make this shirt for $9, okay? And what happens is the company will go, okay, well, what can we cut to make this shirt be $9 an hour or $9? Well, here's what we'll do. We'll cut down on what we pay our workers. And that's essentially how it goes. Now, of course, the workers end up getting screwed on this, and that's what Rosales had said. The workers at the end of the chain end up getting screwed by this process more than anything else. Now, this, I think, is why we need better labor laws. That's, of course, why we also need stronger unions, or else, look, this is an example of the corporations using legal loopholes to run roughshod over the workers. Now, who are the corporations that are linked to this supply chain? Well, you have TJ Maxx, as I mentioned, Macy's, Forever 21, as well as Nordstrom. However, the company that kept popping up the most in these investigations was Ross Dress for Less. Now, Labor Department officials said that they met with executives of Ross and Forever 21 and asked the companies to step up their monitoring and pay their contractors more so their contractors can actually pay legal wages. Now, Connie Wong, a spokeswoman for Ross, said in an email that the company is working with the Labor Department to make sure that the suppliers understand this law. Quote, Ross Stores takes labor issues very seriously, and we require our suppliers to uphold our ethical standards. Okay. Typical corporate response. Forever 21 said, quote, we take these issues very seriously and require all of our vendors to comply with these laws. But of course, they actually don't. Now, Rosales said the retailers hire monitors to make sure the suppliers around the world are complying with laws, but they're very lax with inspection here in the United States. That allows more wage theft, for example, to happen in places like Southern California than it happens in, say, Vietnam or China. Now, retailers are doing this so, as I said, they can keep their prices their prices down and their profits up, especially since minimum wage continues to go up all over the states. Rosales said the stores want to be able to meet demand on a quick basis. It's cheaper to do it here as long as no one is looking. Now, Jose Garcia said he spends about 55 hours a week stitching the hems of blouses, dresses, and women's pants for a factory that supplies Ross. For each blouse he sews, he earns about 22 cents. At the end of every week, when he leaves his sewing machine, he ends up making about $320. That's about $6 an hour. Wow. He says, quote, it seems unjust. They say the minimum wage will go to $15 an hour, but we keep earning $6 to $7. The stores don't want to pay more for the clothes. Yeah, they want as much profit as they can. Now, Garcia gets very little money left after he spends what he earns every week. He gets about $1,000 and spends that on bare necessities. As I said, that's out in LA where things are incredibly expensive. He ends up with about $200 left every month. That's tight, man. He said if you want to go out to eat or go to the movies or send money to your family, you're left with nothing. Now, the one thing that sticks out here is, of course, a lot of these people are immigrants. People that have emigrated here from Mexico. Now, while everyone here else is enjoying their minimum wage, these immigrants are getting exploited by the system. And they're doing that. These companies are doing that because they know they can get away with it. Or they think they can get away with it. Now, you still think that corporations, after hearing the story, should self-regulate? Do you still think we should get rid of more labor laws and get rid of the oversight? Think again. If these companies get away with it for so long, sitting in the middle of LA, liberal California, imagine what they could get away with in your town. That's why we need stronger laws. That's why we need labor laws. That's why we need more oversight. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent, non-corporate media, go to our Patreon page and become a patron. Patreon.com/TYTNation.